Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the launch of the new Govanhill Law Centre. The first thing I should say is that in terms of the fire exits, there's one to the rear and there's one to here. We have opened the Law Centre just there. We couldn't invite everybody to be there. If anyone would like to go and see the new Law Centre on Butterbiggins Road, you're very welcome to go after this reception, and we'll have staff from Govanhill Law Centre to take you down. Once you go there, you will realise that the size of the office is such. I think we did remarkably well to actually have everybody in there this morning. It was pretty touch and go. We're very grateful that you've taken the time to come here today to share in our celebration. There's no one more qualified than Scotland's top law officer to open a legal service for the community. And we're absolutely delighted and proud that the Lord Advocate, Elish Angiolini QC, is opening the Govanhill Law Centre. We're particularly proud of Elish, not least because she's Scotland's first female Lord Advocate. And of course the first, prior to that, the first Solicitor General in Scotland. But also because Elish is a Govan. We're also extremely pleased to have with us this morning the leader of Glasgow City Council, Councillor Stephen Purcell, OXFAM's UK Poverty Programme Country Manager for Scotland, Louise, Carlin, and the Chairperson of Govanhill Housing Association, Janice, McEwan. Now, before I invite our honoured guests to speak, I'd like just to say a few brief words on behalf of Govanhill Law Centre's Board of Trustees. First of all, we'd like to thank our funders. Our funders include the Scottish Government, Govanhill Housing Association, Govanhill Community Development Trust, OXFAM, and the trade unions Unison and Ustal. Without our funders, we could not have opened our new free legal service for the people of Govanhill, so we're absolutely delighted to be here. We'd also like to thank Govan Money Matters Advice Centre, who have been our trusted partner over the last few months in providing an outreach advice surgery in Govanhill. On a personal note, I'd like to give special thanks to Anne Lear and the staff and the management committee members of Govanhill Housing Association, and also my own board of trustees at Govan Law Centre and the staff of Govan Law Centre, because without the dedication and drive of those people, we wouldn't be here today. The creation of Govanhill Law Centre really is a fantastic example of partnership work. It shows what we can achieve when we work together. The new Law Centre already has its first case, even although we're not actually opening officially until tomorrow, hopefully. And that first case is to instruct one of Scotland's top QCs, Roy Martin, to provide a legal opinion on how compulsory purchase legislation can be used to eradicate substandard private rented accommodation in Govanhill. Now, Councillor Stephen Purcell has asked us to provide him with independent advice on this very complex issue, and we're going to do that. And we're particularly grateful to Councillor Purcell for making a personal commitment to do all that he can do to tackle the problems facing Govanhill. On behalf of Govanhill Law Centre, I want to make a personal commitment too to the community of Govanhill. We're going to work hard to earn your trust and your confidence. We're going to work with you because together we're much stronger. Together we can root out the slum landlords and the gang masters, and together we can expose the Mr. Bigs and their criminal practices. Govanhill Law Centre will always be on the side of the people of Govanhill, and will always be in your corner. At the end of the day, it's your community. I think it's time to claim it back from the unscrupulous private landlords, gang masters. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Right Honourable Elish Angiolini QC, the Lord Advocate of Scotland.
Thank you very much, Mike. Good morning, everyone, and I'm very honoured and delighted to be here back. It's not really my home territory. Govanhill was quite posh. I used to come up to Govanhill to tap dance, believe it or not. It's not something which is much called for in my current occupation, but it might prove useful later on if I ever get my jotters. But it's a real thrill to be here, and also can I congratulate Mike and his team of lawyers and staff for the immense contribution they make to the community in Govan, and now hopefully in Govanhill as well, because the notion of the community organising itself and working in a rights-based fashion is something which truly can bring back the community the power over their circumstances, the power when they act together to actually change things rather than to be observants. And I hope that that partnership that you will have with the centre here, the ability to be able to get that advice and to be able to understand the tools and the laws that are there to use those to your benefit, because there is a great toolkit out there to be able to be used. And one of the difficulties we have in government sometimes is the fact that there is a gap between what's there and what is used. And I think, again, this law centre will bring back knowledge of what those rights are, and together with the community I hope empower you to deal with the problems that we know exist. I think Glasgow, and indeed this side of the city, is a tremendously exciting place. There's a tremendous renaissance. You'll have to look at some of the wonderful developments that are going on that the Housing Association itself have produced here to see that the great optimism there should be for this city, its vibrancy and the hope that there should be for its development. But at the same time, affluence can also bring with it challenges and can bring with it other and very vulnerable members of our community. It's tremendous to have our diverse community here with a great mix of cultures and nationalities, but some of those people who come in new are unaware and are more vulnerable than others to exploitation. And again, a centre like this can be a beacon of hope and assistance and strength in that community. But I hope also that from my own corner of prosecution is something of a crude, heavy tool to deal with people when there is breaches of the law. But we are increasingly looking at a problem-solving approach to crime and antisocial behaviour. And sometimes it doesn't always require the act of prosecution. There are other tools available which the Procurator Fiscal locally is very keen to work, again, with the community and I hope with this centre in trying to raise an awareness of what are the problems. Because abuse of powers of landlords has criminal sanctions attached to it. Non-registration has powers attached to it. We all know about Rathcomen in the 60s. We know about the problems that were in the past. We have to ensure that that doesn't happen again, that there are not exploitation of people who have come here to contribute to the wealth of this community and indeed to make this community more successful through that. Likewise, antisocial behaviour orders and closure orders. The police are working very hard to ensure that their drugs are being distributed, where their house is being used for purposes which are not there, that closure orders can be used just to simply shut down those houses. It's something which is a very powerful tool. Again, I hope that the Law Centre will assist in ensuring that authorities enforce these procedures which are available to them, so that we can work together. And I have to say that in the context of prosecution, where we can get assets, where we can get houses, where crime has been committed and assets such as buildings and houses are being used unlawfully in the criminal law, well, we'll have them, thank you very much, and we'll give them back to the community. So I think that that's, again, let's use all of the powers, all of the rights, not just the criminal law, and all of the sanctions which are available in the law. And I hope that this great facility will be something which the community will find assists them and empowers them. And I wish you all very well with the
If I can now ask the leader of Glasgow City Council, Councillor Steve Purcell, to say a few words. Stephen.
Thank you, Mike, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with you this morning. It's always a pleasure to be out of the city chambers, I have to say, and meet real people.
What with the opposition?
It's also, that's just one group. It's also a privilege to be the first case being taken on by it's not always a pleasure for a politician when they have to take legal advice, but in this case it absolutely is. If, however, I realise that I'm having to seek the advice of a Lord Advocate at any point in my career, I think I might have more reason to worry. In August, at the invitation of Mike Dailly and Asawa, I came to Govanhill to see for myself some of the difficulties that day in, day out people were facing in this area, and was delighted to be joined by them and by Anne Beer and Cathy Cowan and Frank McEwan and a number of others. And I was ashamed to say that I was appalled by what I found here. When you do a job like this, you think you know the city very well, and Elish has rightly talked about how Glasgow has changed dramatically over the last decade, and yet we find a part of the city that still has problems, or have come across problems now that are actually reminiscent of things that my grandparents told me about, and that is shameful. And I think that what's happened since then is that all of us, not one of us individually, but all of us have been round the table, talking to each other, but more importantly, folk on the front line out here have been working to solve these issues. And I think that the difference I find this morning in comparison to that visit in August is that there's a great deal more optimism around, that there's a genuine effort being led by local people, working with decision makers and councils to change that. And I have no doubt that Govanhill, the new Govanhill Law Centre, is going to make a significant difference in that work, and we are absolutely determined to support. The City Council is determined to support every effort that you make to deal with the specific issues that Mike has spoken about, and that you who live here know a lot better than I do, and I await with interest that first piece of legal advice that will help inform the Council in an even greater way in tackling these issues. And I hope that by some of our actions in the last couple of weeks, that you will see that working with yourself, with your local councillors, have been at the forefront of chapping my door over the last few months about these issues, that the action you'll have read about in the newspapers with that first landlord that were tackled is just an indication. And I want to be quite clear, it's serving notice on everyone else that if you're not here to work in the interest of the community and the success of this city as a whole, then we're not interested in working with you, we're interested in dealing with you. And I think that's the spirit that we've got between us now. And I'm quite easy to find, I'm quite easy to recognise as I find when I'm walking down the streets. Folk in Glasgow, as we all know, are not reticent in giving you their opinion. It is a personal commitment I'm giving you, you know where to find me.
Thank you very much, Stephen. If we can ask Louise Carlin from OXFAM to
Thank you very much, Mike. Firstly, I'd like to say that I'm very, very pleased to be here today at the launch of what I believe is a vital new community resource. As a lawyer myself, yes, I know, what an admission, and someone who's worked her whole career in the voluntary sector to defend and extend and promote the rights of different groups of people, I'm delighted to be at the opening of the first of a new law centre in Scotland, and the first, I believe, for a whole decade. So it's absolutely brilliant, and I think particularly one which is located in a community where there's a clear need for this resource, as we've heard this morning, but also from local people over the last few months at the various community events that have been held. Although I admit to being a lawyer, I'll keep my comments this morning brief and focus on why OXFAM as an international NGO is involved in a local community law centre. So as OXFAM's country manager for Scotland, I was very intrigued when I was approached by Mike at Govanhill Law Centre to talk about a new law centre in this community. We in OXFAM had already been involved with the Community Health and Care Partnership and them reaching out to the local Roma community. And through this work and discussions with Govanhill Law Centre, we were actually, and I don't think I'm saying this too strongly, we were shocked at what we heard in terms of poverty and inequality in this community. And as Stephen said, we think we know the city, we've worked in communities across the city for many years now, but we were very unaware of the extent of the level of poverty and inequality and, quite frankly, rights abuse that was going on. So OXFAM now funds this new community law centre for the principal reason that we believe that knowledge of rights and access to the means of enforcing those rights are essential ingredients in combating poverty and inequality. And we feel this is true wherever OXFAM works, whether it's Palestine, India, South Africa and Brazil. Discrimination clearly is a root cause of poverty, and that's true in Glasgow, Scotland and across the world. And we also feel it is vital that women and men know their rights and can also enforce them if such discrimination is to be challenged and ended, and that the root causes of poverty and inequality can actually be tackled in an effective and sustained way. The report we commissioned this year from the University of the West of Scotland into the experience of Slovak Roma women and men in Govanhill highlighted what we see as this central link between poverty, rights and discrimination, and it stated, and I quote, "The Roma are disproportionately affected by poverty and are discriminated against in employment, education, healthcare, administrative and other services. They face considerable obstacles to the full enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Therefore, I believe, and my colleagues believe, that it's essential that OXFAM supports these kind of initiatives which can address the poverty and discrimination and abuse of rights that we see here and in communities across the world." As a Glaswegian, I also think it's absolutely fantastic that my city is the first location in the world, as I understand it, where OXFAM has funded a community law centre. But lots of my fellow country directors across the world are very interested in what we're doing here, so watch this space. So as I said, rights are central to the work of OXFAM, and we take what we call a rights-based approach to poverty eradication. This approach includes rights knowledge and enforcement, but also includes supporting the empowerment of women and men to know their rights in the first place and to seek redress. These rights may be universal human rights, like the right to seek and enjoy asylum from persecution, or specific rights created within a particular jurisdiction, like housing rights in Scotland. Whatever the source, we strongly believe that it is imperative that ordinary women and men know what rights are available to them and that they have the means by which to enforce them. More than this, a rights-based approach to poverty goes beyond the individual and can set standards and expectations by which we all are entitled to live and be treated, and through which we can hold those with power to account for the decisions and actions. For example, human rights and equality instruments are now being used in this country to set standards in employment and service provision, and to offer protection to groups of people at risk of exploitation and abuse. A group of low-paid women workers, which we work with at the moment with Unison, recently saved 70 jobs in Dumfries by using what is called the New Gender Duty, for which the women involved received the Equality Award from Alex Salmond in April. This piece of work highlights, I think, the power and potential of knowing and articulating your rights, not just for your own benefit, but also for the benefit of wider progress, although it does highlight the need for effective support to such groups, including legal advice and specialist support. As such, OXFAM also funds and supports the new Roma Rights Network in Govanhill, so-called NORMA, which we believe provides an important space for local Roma women and men to identify what their issues are in their own ways and on their own terms, and how they would or would not like those issues to be taken up. And finally, what I'd like to say is a rights-based approach, in our experience here and across the world, is also vital in combating the often very negative views held about women and men who live in poverty, how they so live and why. Public debate on poverty in this country is unfortunately often couched in terms, or I should say rarely couched in terms of the rights that people are entitled to, but often which they don't know about or can't enforce, and media reports on poverty are too often inaccurate and imbalanced, focusing on the responsibility of people in poverty to eradicate their own poverty, and not the fact that they may not know what they're entitled to. So, for example, the right to a proper standard of housing, protection against exploitation and employment, appears to be less prominent in debates about poverty in Glasgow and also wider than responses which seek to blame people. And negative reporting is obviously a relevant consideration in Govanhill at the moment, And we hope in OXFAM that establishing a culture of rights and an empowered vocal community resource will help redress some of these imbalances. So, I wish the new centre all the very best in its work. I'm honoured to be here today, and OXFAM will be a long-standing supporter of this initiative over the coming years.
Thank you very much. If I can now invite Janice McEwan, who's the chairperson of Govanhill Housing Association, to speak to you. Janice.
Thank you very much. I have been taught today to breathe, so if you hear any loud noises, you know it's my breathing. I am left with the final comments to make, and that's actually quite difficult because nearly everything else has already been said today. But Govanhill always finds something to say. Govanhill Housing Association and the Govanhill Community Development Trust are a successful, controlled organisations working for the whole of the community. The majority of our board members are association tenants who live in the area and who work in the area and also who do this work on a voluntary basis. We are delighted and excited at the prospects of the new law centre working in partnership with us to improve the slum housing conditions. Thought that I would never ever see this again. I mean, it's really bad. For us, it is about supporting our community and making sure they are not exploited by private landlords who don't care how people live as long as they get their rent. We have shown that working in partnership is the best way forward. This is about making our community work. The housing associations always ask for something at public meetings, whether attended by politicians. We've got a few here today, and hope you've got your cheques book with you. Govanhill Housing Association wants to finish the job it started 33 years ago, a long, long time. We have improved over 2,000 houses. We want to finish the work to the 750 houses which are below tolerable standards. People have the right to live in decent homes. We need the funding to improve these flats, and we need the support to introduce compulsory purchase orders to tackle some of the largest rogue landlords in Scotland. Thanks to the leader of the council, Stephen Purcell, for the £3 million he promised for next year. But Stephen, that's not enough. And I honestly mean this by my heart. We need more, Stephen. You've actually seen it today. We need it. Thanks to the convener of the petition committee, the Scottish Parliament, Frank McEwan, for taking a recent petition forward to support, and also a thanks to all the local councils who have supported us. We are a vibrant, mixed community that wants to make a difference. Our community is a very mixed. That's always been the case here. We want to make sure all our community members get the support and advice they need. The whole local community are supporting the Law Centre, and the reason for that is we need it. So thanks to everyone concerned, and I hope that the Law Centre is a really great success. And least of all, somebody else I've got to thank, not in the least the Scottish Government for making this very important Govanhill Law Centre work for the community that I live in. And can I also just say that I think we'll thank people quite a lot today, but for Govanhill, can I just thank Elish for coming along today. Nice to meet you. You can give up a few flowers. Thanks to Louise, Carlin from the OXFAM. Mike Dailly. Mike, I don't know if you're getting qualified. Well, before you give me my flowers, I can also say thanks to Angiolini, the Housing Association staff, and also to Govanhill Law Centre Committee. Thank you very much. Everybody has took part in the funding, and also can I make a thanks to the unions. Okay.
Thank you very much, Janice.
I'll take my flowers now.
So I would just like to repeat that invitation that if anybody wants to go and see the new offices, then please let us know, because we can take you down to Biggins Road and show you around the offices. So all really remains for me to do is to, I think, as Janice says, we've thanked. Have we missed anybody out?
You keep thanking the funders.
I have to say, perhaps one sort of final note of thanks would be to everybody for coming today, because we're absolutely delighted that you've come today. So thanks very much for coming. And we have a buffet which is about to be, if you want to just basically have yourself to good tea and coffee. Thanks very much.